All right, guys, so the first routine we're going to review is from Hot Paramedic 3931. And he says his routine includes warm water warm up 1 to 2 minutes in, then light tunica scraping 70 times each side, Angion method 2 for 1 minute, and then air pumping at 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes at 5 inches of mercury, going in hard, but not like super rock hard, looped up with 1 minute in between. All right, so let's break this down. First, he's using warm water. Well, guys, if you haven't seen my video on heat, you need to check it out. But I think that that's a very reasonable warm up in the sense that warm water, any kind of heat can help to increase blood flow to the area, help to start lymphatic circulation in the area. And it also allows the soft tissue to relax and actually can put you in a state where you're going to be more likely to actually have the ability to stretch and enlarge. Overall, that's a fine warm up. My only problem with like water is it's kind of messy and it requires you have to like go to the sink or go to the shower, like get a hot washcloth. It's messy. I think a heat pack warm up is a better option, guys, but to each their own. All right, guys, so next is going to be the light tunica scraping. I'm on the fence about the tunica scraping or like the gua sha blade. You know that when I tell you I'm not a huge fan of it, I'm not just saying, even though it would be in my financially best interest to try to sell you gua sha blades, like some of you guys, very few people think I actually do that. But there's actually decent literature for it. As far as my specific interpretation of the literature, number one, it can actually increase circulation. And so here's a paper here, and it's titled The Effect of Gua Sha Treatment on the Microcirculation of Surface Tissue. So you can actually get better circulation into the tissue, and that obviously can be beneficial when it comes to enlargement techniques. Here's another paper here. It's entitled The Effect of Scraping Therapy on Local Temperature and Blood Perfusion in Healthy Subjects. These are not randomized controlled trials. The literature is very limited, but there is some literature, some small studies to show that you can actually have a benefit. Now, that's blood circulation. We also need to talk about lymphatic circulation. So here's a paper here, once again, another small study that's titled Gua Sha, a Press Stroke Treatment of Skin Boosts the Immune Response to Intradermal Vaccination. What this study, basically, if you read it, what it does is it breaks down actually that there's some evidence that using a gua sha blade can actually help with lymphatic flow. Back to the routine, do I think gua sha blade is fine? Like, yeah, it's fine. Do I recommend it in my clients or do I have it in my course? Like, nope, I don't, but it's fine to use. So next is going to be AM2, which is the Angion method 2. I had a big fallout with Janis Bifrons, and I still don't have any respect for him as a person or like intellectually speaking. I can't be unbiased when it comes to Angion. That being said, the technique is something where you involves like squeezing the base of your D and then like squeezing the glands of your penis and trying to set up some like bulbodorsal circulatory system. If it works for you, it works for you guys. Like, but I'm once again, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, Angion, that's great. Like that's going to lead to great results. Could it help with actual erection quality? It could. Figure it out for yourself. Do your own research on that. Don't just take my, oh, he doesn't like Janis, so don't do it. Do it for yourself, guys. So here he talks about air pumping at a 433 at 5 inches of mercury. So clearly, this routine is just for erection quality, guys. Before we go any further, this is purely an erection quality routine. Now, erection quality is one of the easiest ways to get a bigger D because you're maximizing your size potential. So there's nothing wrong with that. But from an actual like enlargement perspective, this is not going to get you that. That being said, 433 at 5 inches of mercury, well, quite honestly, like that's fine, but even that pressure is below even like the penile rehab pressure, which is typically about 8 inches of mercury. This is not a routine that I would give somebody for erection quality. I would think, whatever, this is my video, but even just doing like the warm up with a water warm up, sure, you want to do the gua sha blade, more power to you, bro. But I would just do 3 sets of 5 minutes with a 1 to 2 minute break in between at 8 inches of mercury. And I think that that would be at least as effective as that entire routine that you're doing, and it would save you some more time. That's just my take on things. There you have it. So hey guys, it's Hank. Today we're going to be doing what I'm going to start as a weekend series, which is going to be basically like our weekend recap or a weekend review rather, where you can join me on my subreddit r/Hank. I make a post like, leave your routine and I'll review it in a video. I made my post on r/Hank and here we are. I'd like to make this a continuing series because I think it's pretty helpful. All right, guys. So the next routine we're going to review is from Jimmy Hoyles. So it says routine hard clamping, 3 sets of 5 minutes. Guys, you already know I hate hard clamping. I think it's dangerous and I think it can wreak havoc on your pelvic floor. And I think pumping is a much more safe and a much more effective means to go about girth. Already off the bat, like I don't like this routine. That is my bias though. A lot of people swear by clamping and they pump for years and years and didn't get anything but temporary results and they switch to clamping and it works. So There's probably somebody in that's going to be in the comments that say like, I use clamping and that's the only thing that worked for me. So obviously, don't just listen to my one experience. Hard clamping followed by pumping 3 sets of 5 minutes. And scrolling ahead, he says the pump pressure is 10 inches of mercury. Once again, this is just, I guess, my pet peeve, but Hg is just like mercury. So you need to specify, is it millimeters of mercury or inches of mercury? It's a thing that got started on basically getting bigger. They would just say pump to 5 Hg, and I blame BD for this when it really should have been inches of mercury. But 3 sets of 5 minutes at 10 inches of mercury, like that's actually a pretty reasonable pumping routine. I'm on board with that. After pumping, he follows that by vacuum extending 3 sets of 20 minutes. Vacuum extending, I think that's like extenders, especially with the vacuum cap without the risk of like a noose extender. I think that's a great routine. And that's a total of about 60 minutes at 20-minute intervals. That's pretty reasonable. I like to err on the side of safety, and it makes things a little bit more inconvenient, but I would rather see you do like 4 15-minute sets, just so you're taking a break a little bit longer, because with that vacuum cap, the more pressure, the more time you have under that tension, the more you're going to increase your risk of developing something like a blister. And so I think taking more frequent breaks is a little bit better. It allows you to take a break, check, make sure everything is okay, reapply, and move forward. 3 sets of 20 minutes. Overall, is that fine? I would rather see you shorten that time period. But most importantly, I think your routine is backwards. You should absolutely start with the vacuum extending. When you're extending, you're not only getting in the length work, but once again, in my opinion, it's kind of like priming the tunica for expansion. This is a dumb metaphor, but like if you have a balloon, all right, you want to blow up the balloon, what's the first thing you do? You pull it and you stretch it, because you stretch it allows it to expand easier. That's kind of like what you're doing with your tunica. So here's what I would recommend. Final answer. You're going to be doing the vac hanging. So you're doing the length work, you're priming the tunica, then you're following that with hard clamping. You do the hard clamping next, because hard clamping is an ischemic exercise. When you have that constriction ring in place, you're occluding the blood vessels, you're preventing that oxygenated blood from getting in there. So you are essentially putting the penis in a more ischemic state. And then after the hard clamping, you do the pumping, which is forcing a lot of oxygenated blood into the penile tissue, and that's going to help offset the damage that was done by hard clamping. That's what I would recommend. The length work followed by hard clamping, if you must do it, followed by closing off with pumping. Overall, I think that's a pretty solid routine. That's interesting. Should I rate these routines? Let's see. What would I give that? Guys, this is just on my personal bias, okay? I'm by no means like the only authority in here, but I would probably give that, in its current form, I would give that a B-. But if you make those tweaks, I would give that like more like an A-. If you took out the clamping, I'd probably give it more like an A. All right, guys. And so the last routine we're going to review, so this is by Specialist Spot. He says hang 20 minutes times 2 sets, soft clamp 3 sets of 5 minutes, and then manual stretches 20 minutes at night when in bed. So I like this routine actually, okay? I think that hanging is a pretty safe option. I think it's a pretty good option. Unfortunately, there isn't like published medical literature like there is with extenders, but it's overall, it's a tension lengthening exercise. And so I think it's a good routine. And guys, I know I see you looking at this Acorn Gang merch. The link is in the description below if you want to tank like your boy. These do run a little big, just so you know. But so I like it's a length work, 20-minute sets times 2 sets, a total of 40 minutes. I think that's a pretty good range. Typically with length work, when you're using a device, I think the sweet spot is ideally between 45 to 60 minutes, depending on if like length is your focus. I think that's a good set time. Once again, like I'd rather see you break up the hang sessions into 4 10-minute sessions, just so you can like take a break, reassess, make sure that everything is okay, and then move forward. I think that that's good. And then followed immediately by soft clamping, 3 sets of 5 minutes. So soft clamping is one of those things. I think hard clamping is hard enough to get right. I think soft clamping is even harder to get right, actually, believe it or not. I think it's less risky. It really depends on how you're soft clamping. I don't really soft clamp anymore. I still have a technique that I think works for me, but I just prefer pumping. It's just so much easier for me. If your goal is girth, the 3 sets of 5 minutes, I would probably at least increase it to probably 4 sets of 5 minutes just to get a little bit more time in the expanded and the more dilated state. But I think that's pretty reasonable depending on how you're doing. And soft clamping is significantly safer than hard clamping because it doesn't have that immobile restriction. It does leave you a little bit of wiggle room for blood flow. So I think that's a pretty solid routine, man. And then followed by manual stretches 20 minutes at night when in bed. It seems like length work is your focus and you want some girth benefits too, which is good. Maybe some erection quality benefits. I personally, I love the twice a day approach. If I had more time, I would definitely do a twice a day approach. That is my preferred method personally. This is depending on when you do that first set. I think that this is almost kind of like a compromise with that. Overall, I think that's a good routine, man. I'd probably give this, I don't know, who am I to be the judge? I'd probably say this is a B+ routine. Like, guys, I'm pulling it out of my butt. Tell me what you think in the comments. Let me know if you think I'm way off on this. But let me know what you think, guys, about these routines. If you want to learn step by step how to get bigger from me, of course, guys, I have my enlargement course where I break down the data and you can learn in a step-by-step format based on real published trials how to get bigger. That'll do it. Remember, there's nothing wrong with self-improvement, but you are enough just the way you are. All right, guys, if you want to support me, you know how to do it. Links are in the description. If you want to reach me for coaching or for injury consultation, of course, patreon.com/DocHink. All right, guys. And of course, if you want to support Callie, links are in the description as well. All right, peace and love.
Dr. Hink got the plug on the health, yeah. Got you thinking about your wealth, yeah. In his office, no stealth, yeah. Pinnacle